And thank you all for joining. So I'm going to talk about MIS complications you actually see and how to avoid them. And I'll just say that I think most of these complications are not unique to MIS. They can happen in open surgery, in hybrid surgery, but a lot of some of these techniques are a little bit more used in MIS, so we'll focus a bit more on that. I say that disclaimer because a lot of you guys are MIS and I do more open, so we see complications and everything. Here are my disclosures. So we'll start with lumbar plexus injuries. I think these are probably the most commonly talked about complications in MIS spine surgery, and we have some masters of lateral spine surgery right here in the room who do a lot more than I do. But this is something that's talked about probably the most. It is not uncommon, but thankfully most of the lumbar plexus issues are transient issues, and they resolve with time. We can see up to 23 to 39% of patients experiencing anterior thigh pain, numbness, dysesthesias. And again, hip flexor weakness is not uncommon at all. 1 to 33 or 36% of patients have been reported to have transient hip flexion weakness, especially from L4-5, that typically resolves with time. And I think that's a positive thing, that most of these are transient issues that can resolve. How do we look into it further and try to avoid even those high rates? Well, I think, again, a lot of work has been done by people in this very room, paying more attention to the plexus, the anatomy of the plexus, and dividing the disc space into zones from anterior to posterior. This was work done by Dr. Uribe, I believe in 2010, where they came up with, if you look at the black circles, those are the safe zones for each disc space where you have the lowest chance of causing a major neurological issue. And if you look at L1, 2, L2, 3, L3, L4, these were typically in zone 2. So the zones are basically, the disc is divided into quarters, and so you have 4 zones. And so zone 2 is, zone 1 is the most, zone 4 is the most posterior one, and then you have zone 3. So this is actually zone 3, which is a safe zone for L1, L2, L2, 3, and L3, L4. And for L4, L5, it's a little bit more anterior because, as we see here, the plexus does start to come, or a lot of the nerves do start to come more anterior. We get lower down towards L4, L5. And so if you're looking at specific, I don't know if this turned off, it's over there. If you look at specific disc levels, from this study at least, L1, L2, they found that most of the nerves were in zone 4, so posteriorly. If you're anterior, you're fine. L2, L3, again, most of the nerves were, again, posterior in zone 4, with the exception of the genitofemoral nerve, which does start to come more anterior. Same thing with L3, L4, the genitofemoral nerve can be a bit more anterior. Most of the mid disc is safe. And L4, L5 is the tricky one where the plexus does come up to even the mid body almost, and then you have the genitofemoral nerve in the front. So there is no true completely safe zone, but you do have zones where you have lesser chance of nerve injury or fewer nerves across that section. So this was a nice meta-analysis and systematic review that I came across, where they also looked at a bunch of these cadaver studies that have been done to identify the different zones that are safe based on each disc itself. And their findings were pretty similar. Essentially, even at L3, L4, you may have a small percentage of people that have some more nerves that come anterior as well. But typically, you have these safe windows for working in those different zones. The interesting thing is that on the convexity, the nerves go a bit more posterior, as opposed to concavity. So if you're dealing with scoliosis, that may be the reason to go from the convex side as opposed to the concave side. And this is a nice table where they summarize the safe zones from all the different studies. So if you want to look at it at more depth, I have interest in. How do we avoid it? Well, by knowing the safe zones, by knowing that knowing your anatomy and for each of the different disc levels, and also then we use triggered EMGs quite frequently in these patients. We try to make sure we're not in the proximity of a nerve as you're docking your retractors. And then obviously things talked about are limiting the retractor tie, as well as decreasing tension by not doing excessive bending when we're doing lateral approaches, and also by side flexing the hips. Those can all help in decreasing that. So that was probably the most important thing, I think, as far as lateral stuff is concerned. Radiculopathy can be a complication for any type of spine surgery, MIS or open. In MIS TLIF is seen in about 2.8%, even up to 57% of cases. Again, most of them are transient, could be related to retraction or just the window that we're trying to work through. But we do want to pay attention to other things such as cage migration, screw malposition. People can use BNP can cause radiculitis as well. So there are other reasons to cause radiculopathy. And then choosing the right cage based on the window that you have, I think also makes sense to avoid radiculopathy. Now, we have also seen radiculopathy happen in lateral approaches, which can happen often in the contralateral side. If you haven't done a good disc prep, you can push disc prep to the other side. If the patient has an osteophyte on the opposite side, sometimes we've seen that breaks off and pushes on the nerves on the other side. Or if the cage is not positioned properly, ends up in the framelit on the other side, that can also cause radiculopathy. So those are all the things to look at. If someone does have radiculopathy that is unexpected and more than you would expect from just irritation, what you want to do is obviously get imaging to look at screw placement, cage placement, migration, all those things to make sure that nothing else structurally that's going on that would cause that. Sympathetic chain injury, again, more commonly seen in the lateral approaches, less so like the anterior ones. Actually, even in the pediatric population, we see that patients are getting tethers. I've seen quite a few patients come in afterwards complaining of this warmth and flushed skin and swelling of the side of the vagina. And as we know, the sympathetic chain runs on the natural aspect of the lumbar spine, and as we're exposing that, you just have to be mindful of that and maybe avoid that. This is one of the reasons or the injuries, which is maybe a little bit more common in the anti-psoas or pre-psoas approach, because you are going a bit more anterior, and so you may want to be a little bit posterior to the anterior edge to avoid the sympathetic chain injury, but then you have to worry about the number of exits. So, cage subsidence is a known risk as well for all types of surgery. Maybe a little bit more what I've seen in MIS, and even so in lateral, even though you put a big cage, big footprint cage in there. And I think some of the factors that contribute to this are going to be your end plate preparation. I think shavers that we put in the disc, shavers that we have are quite aggressive, and especially patients with osteopenic bone and definitely osteoporotic bones. You can easily go through those end plates with those sharp shavers without even knowing much. So my theory there is that as soon as I start to feel the end plate, that's the end of the shavers, and then I do the rest of the cleaning up with gently with curettes and other things and other types. But other things to do to avoid subsidence would be to make sure the patient is not in osteoporosis, check their counts per units, make sure they're treated properly as far as their bone quality is concerned, so that the patient factor is optimized, and then you can work on the surgical factor itself. And here's these are all some of these are published papers that show these examples. So you see the example with lateral cage subsided there as well. Pseudoarthrosis, a bit more common in MIS steelers as opposed to laterals. Laterals obviously have a better risk, the disc private, bigger cage, so a higher chance of fusion there. But it is highly dependent on the technique. I think there are definitely, I would say, probably MIS steeler surgeons who have really high rates of union. So I think, the pseudoarthrosis rate is dependent on your technique. It depends on your enclave preparation, your desk preparation, your bone grafting, what you're using. If you're also still somehow decorticating and putting grafting in the other joint, if you're still doing some intertransverse grafting or not. So a lot of other factors go into it. It's difficult to put them all in one. And so you avoid them by knowing all this and just your technique. Obviously, patient factors such as osteoporosis and smoking need to be addressed. I'll put a little plug in for the guidelines that we had published a couple of years ago for screening, managing and treating patients who are going to have spine surgery that who have osteoporosis. So won't go into that. And we've also published a bit of work on optimizing patients before they have spine surgery, just to optimize patient factors so that you have a best outcome in addition to your surgery. Spinal malalignment, again, I think we are seeing this thankfully less and less with MIS surgery, but especially I think single level surgeries are at risk, especially as you see at that 4 or 5 level, as a risk of not having appropriate spinal alignment.
if we don't pay attention to that. And since I'm almost out of time, I would say that the key here is really paying attention to the alignment, knowing what you're looking for. I think custom implants, custom bras, all those things also help because then you just have the planning going in there to avoid that. I think I'm almost at time, so I'll skip through the rest and I'll just go to the very end. So I think overall the rates are low. In MLS, spine surgery, you have complications. Each approach has its own little quirks that you need to know. You need to optimize the patient and you also optimize your surgical technique. And then we all have complications. I think the key is to then have the toolbox to then deal with them. So as it happens. Thank you very much.